You are never going to guess who's on the podcast today. If you guessed for a million years, you'd never... Okay, yes, it's Ben Claremont. Yes! Greetings, salutations, I am Scojo in 360. It is a banner day for my YouTube channel. Let me break that down for you really quick. It was a little over a year ago in a cabin in Oregon when my brother put on an Oculus headset onto my head and my world turned upside down. Now, I'd heard of VR video before, but experiencing it was life-changing. But then I was left with, okay, what do I do now? Well, what I did next was watch Ben Claremont. Ben has been doing 360 for quite some time, extremely knowledgeable, and in fact, it was watching one of his videos when I figured out that there was such a thing as reframing and over-capturing video, which is a large portion of what I use 360 video for now. So to say that Ben Claremont had an influence on my 360 career would be an understatement. So just like in our first episode where I reached out to Schnell from Best in 360 and asked them to put together the Dream 360 camera, I also reached out to Ben and he said yes. So I am just thrilled to have Ben on the podcast today. I asked him the question, how do you make your best 360 camera? Let's hear what he had to say.
What would the perfect 360 camera look like? Good question. I know if you ask the average person, the tendency would be to exaggerate just a tiny little bit with 1 million megapixel resolution photos and 20K video, and it has to have like 100 terabytes of inbuilt storage. Yes, I hear requests like this all the time, believe it or not. So instead of entertaining these highly unrealistic ideas, I'm going to base my predictions more on something that is realistic within the next 12 months, hopefully in 2012. Wait, what year is it? It's 2019. Hopefully in 2020, we see some of these things happen. And what I'm going to do is focus on photo qualities as opposed to video qualities. Because something I've noticed is that people seem to be using 360 photography more than 360 video in a professional context. In terms of earning money from their work, with 360 photography, you've got client work, you've got virtual tours. There are so many ways you can make money with 360 photography, whereas 360 video is more of a fun thing to do to make fun videos for online. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm gonna focus on some cool photo features that I hope to see soon.
Okay. I hate to pause this guy when he's in mid-inspiration, but I really want to back up what he just said. There are really two routes that you're going to go with 360 at the moment. One of them is to do kind of like me, where you just go out and you throw a camera around, you act like a dork, and you just have fun, share it with your friends, and do what they call reframing or over-capturing. But a lot of that isn't really being used professionally right now, so if you want to get into 360 and actually make money doing it, you're going to want to look at 360 photography, virtual tours, things like that. And I can back that up because the only time I've gotten paid so far to do 360 is 360 photography and actually like virtual tours in video. So this is extremely relevant information for anybody who wants to make a living with 360, but also very relevant to us fun people, that dorks that look at cameras and send them off to their friends. All right, Ben, let's keep rocking.
So in 2020, I hope to see the average 360 camera photo resolution between 30 and 50 megapixels. And yes, we do already have cameras like this, but I want to see good quality 360 photos that have good dynamic range, that are really sharp, nice colors, no overblown highlights, no crushed shadows. I just want a really nice quality 30 to 50 megapixel image. Kind of like what we saw with the Theta Z1. Imagine if you scaled that up all the way to 50 megapixels. That would be unquestionably the best thing ever. And I feel like in 2020, 30 megapixels is going to be the new standard for 360 photography as opposed to the average 16 to 21 that we have now.
Okay, for those of you who are unfamiliar, a megapixel is actually a million pixels. A pixel is just basically a little digital square with a color or shade in it, essentially. And the more of these you have, the clearer the image. Ironically, to get a little ethereal on you, they're starting to see that a lot of our reality is essentially pixelated in a very, very high definition. But essentially, you know, what you're seeing in a digital photo is a bunch of little squares all put back to back to back to back to back, side to side to side to side, and it makes what looks like a photo. If you don't have a lot of pixels, like 12 million or 18 million, your eye will start to detect little edges, little scissory things along the image. So the more megapixels you have, the more smooth it looks, even though it's actually a little square. So megapixels, getting those higher megapixels rates will dramatically increase the resolution on your camera. All right, Ben, keep rocking.
Of course, it's got to have good inbuilt dynamic range, and this comes from using inbuilt HDR. It'd be great to have that feature, as well as bracketing, where you can shoot several different exposures, blend them together, and RAW as well. So it would be really cool to have really high quality RAW plus bracketing. Let's say 50 megapixels, where you can shoot 5 different exposures in RAW, blend them together, and get the ultimate high resolution, high dynamic range photo. Something like that, yeah, it would give DSLRs a run for their money.
Okay, let's unpack the 3 terms you use there: HDR, bracketing, and RAW. First of all, HDR is probably the one that you may be the most familiar with. That is essentially where they take, standardly it would be about 3 photos at different levels of different exposures, and then you blend them together so you get a really nice contrast. Very beautiful way of doing things. Now with bracketing, this is one that I don't use all that much because I don't do a whole heck of a lot with photography, but you take multiple pictures within a little bit tighter framework. HDR gives you a better looking photo right out of the gate, whereas bracketing will give you more flexibility in post. Now raw photos, raw videos, this is where this is so hard to explain to somebody if you're not familiar, but basically raw looks horrible when it first comes out. It looks washed out and all that stuff, but what it's doing is essentially saving the data that you want to use to boost colors or, you know, exposures and stuff like that, and saving that for when you're in post-production. So if you really want the highest quality, usually you go with RAW. There are some exceptions that RAW doesn't really work out all that well, and it is much more labor intensive, but bracketing, RAW, HDR are all things that you do in order to really increase the quality of the image. HDR being the most rewarding quickly, but RAW and bracketing being the ones that will overall make it look the best, but you gotta do the work. All right, back to Mr. Ben.
Another realistic feature I like to see is to do with the workflow. It would be good to have a super smartphone friendly workflow where you can edit 30 to 50 megapixel photos on your phone in RAW, export them, upload them to the internet, and you don't have to leave this thing. We do have that to an extent already with photos and videos, but not the quality that these cameras are really capable of. So in 2020, it would be really cool to see a step up in the capabilities of these 360 cameras to be used solely on a phone.
Now, once again, I'm definitely echoing what Ben has to say here. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't have just 6 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, because I edit video professionally, standard video, and so I use Premiere, and that's what I was using all the time, and thinking, oh, I'm not going to go using the app. That's going to be the amateur way to do it. Yeah, I'm a snob. But then I started using the apps, and I discovered things like a viewfinder mode in the Insta360 One X app and overcapture mode in the GoPro app. And they're awesome. Do you get the full quality that you would if you took it onto a desktop software? No, you don't. But like the viewfinder mode and the overcapture mode, it literally, you edit by moving your smartphone in the direction you want to look. It is a revolution in editing. Take it from someone who has to manually keyframe for a living for hours. Having something that just follows where you want to look is an absolute godsend. So having that much power in an app would significantly increase not only what you could do for fun and your friends, but what you could do professionally.
As one final realistic request, well, I don't know if this one's realistic at all actually, but it's something I've always fantasized about, and that is the ability to have a shallow depth of field within a 360 photo. So like you see me now, see how there's a blurry background behind me? Yeah, I want to do that with a 360 photo. How cool would that be? It hasn't happened before that I'm aware of, but if you could do that, I'd be like,
shut up and take my money.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point. Now, I'm more of an editor, producer, director. I'm not really what I would consider to be a cinematographer, so I don't know that much about cameras. I just use them, but shallow depth of field is a way of kind of drawing attention to your subject. I'm not really using it here because you can see everything around me, but if you use a shallow depth of field, what happens is you get more focus on the person and it just kind of blurs out the background. It's you spend a lot of money on some very expensive lenses to get some really good shallow depth of field. So it's something that's very artistic, very cinematic. How to get that on a 360 camera, I'm not exactly sure. Who's going to step up and do it?
All right, that's it from Mr. Ben. You can find me at youtube.com/Ben Claremont, and I have a course about virtual tours called Virtual Tour Pro, which you can get at virtualtourpro.com. Thanks for having me, Scojo in 360, and I'll talk to you later.
And thank you, Ben Claremont, for making my YouTube dreams come true. This is really is a landmark for me. I'm just a little over a year into the YouTube process, and I have one of my, I don't use the word hero lightly, so I won't call him a hero. I mean, we're YouTubers, we're not heroes, but Ben is maybe a godfather to me, so it's just been absolutely fantastic having him on the podcast. If you have questions or topics or anything you want to have covered on the podcast, please get it going. Put it in the comment section below. This is only my second official episode, so I'm really still getting the bugs worked out. I want to get more guests on here, so make some suggestions, make some topic suggestions, all that fun stuff. Please don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, share it with your friends, and ring the bell on the side so you'll get a notification every time I release new content. All right, people, the podcast is coming to an end, and we're going to end it like we always do.